Hey guys, Chris the Groove Seeker here, coming to you with another video. I wanted to take a couple of moments to talk about Bob Weir, who we just lost on Saturday, January 10th, founding member of the Grateful Dead, someone who kept the Grateful Dead spirit alive in conjunction with Phil Lesh, post Jerry. And I think overall, in retrospect, a really important person in American music history. So I wanted to honor Bob Weir with just giving you guys my top five favorite Bob Weir tracks in general, or Bob Weir led songs by the Grateful Dead. Real brief video, nothing in too great detail. I'll rattle off the list once I get through some comments. I did want to just kind of reflect on my relationship with the Grateful Dead because they are a very informative and important band to me as I develop my musical tastes and what I became interested in. I love this band, and I think arguably they're the most important American band ever. I don't know if they're the best, but I think they're the most important, and I think some people would think they're the best for a lot of different reasons, culturally, business wise, just how they carved out their own niche and kind of trailblazed the path for a lot of other bands to kind of follow either their entire model or some part of their model. My relationship with the Grateful Dead, ironically enough, is my first memory is really that I can remember is hearing about Jerry Garcia's passing. I think I was 11 when that happened. I had heard the name The Grateful Dead. I'd probably heard songs on classic rock radio, but that's the kind of the first thing that resonates with me. A couple of years later, probably around the time of 14, 15 years old, I got exposed to them pretty significantly through my own discovery. Started reading about them and just decided to dive in to the band, and a lot of what I listened to shaped what I liked about music, most explicitly the live approach that they took. So for me, I wasn't in a counterculture scene at all. I wasn't in the punk scene growing up. I wasn't a skater. This was probably the first music or movement that I identified having like a counterculture feel to it. Specific types of people really like outwardly listening to it and professing about it. And I found that very interesting. So it was another way of maybe being rebellious subconsciously, listening to the music because it seems so taboo or different than what you typically would listen to as a teenager on classic rock, people getting into Led Zeppelin and the Doors and all that stuff. It was like the Grateful Dead kids, as I called them, were like on another level or a different sphere, I guess. It accelerated pretty rapidly. Began listening to the music, learning about the live shows, investigating live shows. It was a bit different back then. The internet wasn't really available to download music off of as rampant as it is now. You're really relying on word of mouth still. I think I was probably the last range of kids that had to rely on the word of mouth and like people sharing recordings with you or buying some of the official live stuff in the store to kind of get exposure to the Dead. And in my later high school years, I wound up working at a music store that had so many Deadheads, and not your typical stereotypical hippie Deadhead. These were just people you never expected when they revealed they were Grateful Dead fans. That you realize like, hey, this music's for everybody. So first and foremost, my first boss ever, Mike. Well, not my first boss ever, but my first boss at the music store, Mike, was a massive Deadhead. I mean, Jerry shows into the music to this day can give you chapter and verse on the career, has a lot of really unique perspectives on all the band members. So shout out to Mike. And then my next boss, who was one of my mentors as well, my friend Dean, rest in peace, Dean, he was a massive Deadhead as well, who had seen them in the late 70s, early 80s, and on towards the end. And then through that, I had friends that were very into the music. One of my childhood friends, Brian, who we still stay in contact to this day and go see shows, we kind of found the Dead at the same time. And then other co-workers at the music store I was with, just really into the Grateful Dead. So at that time, the Dead had been the other ones for a short amount of time, like post Jerry. If just for quick historical context, Phil Lesh had kind of started redoing things in 1999. He opened up 3 shows with Trey Anastasio, Steve Kimmock, and Paige McConnell. They played 3 Phil Lesh and Friends shows. Phil Lesh was going off and doing kind of his own thing. And then the other ones came together, which I think was Kimmock, Jorma Kaukonen, and then the remaining members of the Grateful Dead. And they had played some festivals like Further Fest, I think. And my history's a little blurry on that. But then I started seeing them when they were the other ones. And then I saw a substantial amount of the Dead shows, which was Warren Haynes in the band with Jimmy Herring, and the remaining members of the Grateful Dead. I think some changeover in guitar players from time to time, and maybe a keyboard player from here or there. But I had seen those shows, I guess, for probably 4 years. And then I carried on and kept on seeing Phil Lesh, but then stopped at Dead and Company. I really respect and love John Mayer, not all of his stuff, but I think he's phenomenal. But something was off with the speed of the music. And then, I didn't go see it, I'll say that, but I listened to enough of those live shows for being very curious, and it just didn't do it for me. I don't consider myself a Deadhead. I think that's not for me to claim. I never saw Jerry. So I don't see how I could really fall into that category, but, I love them just as much as anybody else. My listening relationship with them kind of varied over the years. Of course, when I first got into them, and then throughout college and post college, it was like constant rotation. Then I took a really long break from them, and then occasionally would go back. But I get into these periods where they will be the only thing I listen to for a few weeks or a month or something like that. It just happens. I get in the mood and I rediscover shows that I had listened to or new shows that I'd never heard, and kind of get lost in it a bit. But, overall, I think they're, in a strange way, very underrated. And I think you're seeing that there are reincarnations of this band, whether it's Dead and Company or J-Rad or Dark Star Orchestra, or what Bill Kreutzmann did with Billy and the Kids. There's all these I hate to call them tribute bands or cover bands, because there's something special about it. I almost feel like they're songs that become American standards in a way. And those, artists are trying to keep that music alive. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this stands the test of time now that basically everybody except Bill and Mickey are gone. So, rest in peace, Bob Weir. He wasn't my favorite member, but that's like saying it's not my favorite flavor of ice cream or my favorite candy. Right? There were Bobby people and there were Jerry people and there were Phil people. And I just fell more into the Jerry camp, but major contributor. I think he's an underrated guitar player, and I think that Garcia's sound benefited greatly from what Bobby did as a rhythm guitarist. I think he had a very unique perspective on how he approached rhythm guitar. And I think that allowed Jerry to play the fills he played and the lead he played at times, and even, kind of go off and really have a runway to experiment, which is one of the main reasons why the Grateful Dead was so great, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? So I just want to give you guys, these are my 5 favorite Bob Weir-led songs. I think there are some pretty consistent lists if you talk to people, and I'm going to leave some of those songs off because, again, these are mine. I'm not going to give you specific versions to go look after. I will say to not go to studio versions for these songs. I'm going to give you kind of ranges of periods to go listen to a version of the song, like a year range. I'm a little bit rusty on this show's better than that show, this version's better than that version, except for some very specific songs. I've kind of lost my my knowledge base on that a bit, because like I said, I don't listen to them nearly as much as I used to, or as consistently as I used to. But anyway, I'm gonna list these songs, give a few brief comments. Hopefully you guys go and investigate it. I was gonna make this video sooner, but I needed some time to kind of meditate on what I was gonna say and what my approach was gonna be, because this is it's a bit of a tribute to Bob Weir. So number 5, probably going to be the most unpopular take I have. I love Throwing Stones off the In the Dark record. This is going to be a mid to late 80s tune. I think it's fantastic live. I think it's got a really cool rhythm to it and a really good riff. And the way Bobby kind of goes into the chorus and the breakdown is a lot of fun live. So yeah, you could listen to the studio version, but if you can go into the late 80s and pick up a version where the Grateful Dead swinging on it, I think it's great. Number 4 on the list is Promised Land. Now, this is a Chuck Berry cover, which is really cool. I think I love this song because growing up in a household full of Elvis, Elvis used to do this live in the 70s. So when I started listening to the Grateful Dead and I realized they were doing it at the same time, I thought it was really cool. And then I found out it was a Chuck Berry tune, which I thought was pretty sweet. So it's usually first or second song in the set, sometimes third. I would recommend, and for the rest of these picks, I'm going to recommend this going back to the early 70s, especially Europe 72 or the Fillmore in the early 70s, to hear a really great, good version of Promised Land. Just a fun tune. They don't stretch it out. They don't jam on it. It's like 3.5 minutes of just pure, rhythm and blues. And one of my favorite Lead Bobby tunes. Number 3, which sometimes was played in the set with this song, sometimes back to back, I think, but certainly within a few songs of one another, sometimes a set opener, and that's Greatest Story Ever Told. So that was a Bob Weir song off his solo record, Ace. And I think that came out in 71 or 72, so the Dead was playing this in the early 70s as well. Just a really fun song. I think this was actually co-written with Mickey Hart and Weir's co-writing partner. I could be wrong about that. I have to check the credits. Like I said, I'm not into the band like I used to be, so my knowledge base is a little fuzzy. Number 2, which is going to be a lot of people's number 1, is Jack Straw. Again, I'm going to say go back to early 70s, even late 70s on Jack Straw. Look up some of the live versions. There are some epic versions. If you look on YouTube, if you type in like best Jack Straw, it'll give you a few videos of maybe some select choices from Deadheads. But Jack Straw is probably one of, I would say maybe it's Bobby's best songs to a lot of people. It's up there for me, but it doesn't surpass what I'm going to put at number 1. Yeah, what can I say? Listen to Jack Straw and let me know your thoughts. Number 1 for me, Early Dead, and that's the other one. And this is just lyrically a magnificent song. It's certainly psychedelic in nature as far as the lyrics and the story being told. I won't ruin any surprises. I'll let you guys read up on that. But as far as like a live version, a live staple, this tune really stretched out quite a bit. There's a huge build-up, and it's often a song that they would sieg in and out of during a set. Start off with it, go to another song, come back to it and finish it, sometimes not finish it. Sometimes go into drums and then come back into the other one. I would start with any version off the Europe 72 tour. There's a couple of different shows where they played some really epic versions. And then you can go on again into the late 70s and kind of pick up on, different variations of it. So just a quick recap. Again, if you're not a Grateful Dead fan, search for the live versions of number 5, Throwing Stones. Look for a late 80s or mid to late 80s version. Number 4, Promised Land, Chuck Berry tune. I would look for an early 70s version. Number 3, Greatest Story Ever Told, also an early 70s version. Number 2, Jack Straw, same thing, early 70s, late 70s. If you search best Jack Straws online, you'll also find some other variations that are worth noting. And the number 1 that takes the cake is the other one. So quick tribute video, rest in peace, Bob Weir. Thank you for the music, and long live the Grateful Dead. Thanks, guys.